What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Jesse Warden here. So my friend Bellick has asked me to talk about Cypress IO today. So I usually have slides with this, but I'll make some YouTube videos later to give you some demos. But from a high level, Cypress is a tool for writing functional tests inside of a browser. Normally when you're doing functional tests or end-to-end tests where you actually see the website work, a lot of people will use that to test not UI stuff, but actually the entire system. So when people say, does the website work? Does the app work? Cypress or Selenium or not even LoadRunner, but just test it, test actual browser functionality, mainly Selenium, are kind of like the main end goal test, right? They have a reputation for being some of the worst tests ever. And so Cypress said, we're gonna fix it. We're gonna make end-to-end test the easier test to write, the more fun test to write, and we're gonna create one of the best tools for it. So that's what it's for. It's writing functional tests, but it runs in the browser. You can actually debug it. So if you're a software developer who writes React, Angular, Vue, or even just websites, you can test inside the browser and debug your UI and your code at the same time with the same tool, which is pretty rad. They offer a paid service with concurrent testing. So if you want to do headless testing with a bunch of tests at one time, that's where they make their money. So the Cypress itself is open source. You can download it for free. You don't have to pay. But once you run in a headless mode, you want concurrent tests, you got to pay. If you run headless without it, it just runs one test after the other. So you just have slow tests when you run in headless. If you run in a regular, normal way, it's not. It doesn't use any Selenium at all. It uses 100% Electron, and that's why it's really, really fast from a development cycle. So why would you use this over Selenium or other tools that have worked for years? Well, first off, it's supposed to provide the best developer experience. So like if you're a developer and you're writing code, or you're writing an app, and you're building a new one, this is supposed to make it fun. I have never really enjoyed Selenium other than trying to get it to work, or figuring out bugs, but none of that is enjoyable, right? And that's what Cypress has tried to done to make it. I want to write end-to-end tests, and I want to make it fun when I do it. So it's really changed my life for the better from a end-to-end testing perspective. Unit tests, integration tests are great, but when clients and your boss go, does the website work? You can actually prove it in both a white box and black box perspective. So what is it for? It's for using when you're building a website. It is not for websites you don't control. So for example, if you want to write automated tests against another bank website, for example, like Mint will actually use Selenium to log in your bank for you, and that's how they check your bank balance. Or if you're dealing with a legacy application where you have to go in and do login and then go to iframes and things like that, that's not what Cypress is for at all. It's strictly for a website that you control in an environment that you control. It doesn't matter what type though. I mean, it could be Elm, React, Angular, Vue. It could be server-side rendered like Drupal or WordPress or some Java thing from the 70s. Like it doesn't really matter what type of site it is. The point is that you control the code base and you control the URLs, and you don't use old things like redirects and iframes and things like that. So it doesn't have any C++ drivers. There's no other binaries or system binaries. Bindings are just kind of cool. It's just literally JavaScript and Node in the browser. So I know Node isn't in the browser, but there's ways of talking to Node if you have to do some like OS level things. And I don't have a picture, but a lot of times I spent, I don't know, days, weeks trying to figure just Chrome driver issues. Literally it worked today and the next week it doesn't work because of a Chrome driver, where Cypress is like Electron, so it just works every day. You don't have to worry about it magically breaking on you. It's also fast in that I can code, write the test, debug my code and the test at the same time. So it really facilitates either test-driven development or red-green refactor. That kind of workflow of testing and development can happen at the same time. So you don't have to, even if you have like that role is not I'm a developer and a tester, you actually have two different roles, that's fine. The point is that they can work together in the same code. That's really powerful and awesome. So if you're comparing it to Selenium, to give you some context, Selenium, I can't access my application while it's testing. It's actually making calls through like a binary thing, right? Whereas in Cypress, my app and the testing tool is in it at the same time, right? In Selenium, I don't have real-time access to logs, so I can dump the browser logs from Chrome, but I can't open, like I would inspect in Chrome and see those logs there. I can't see it. Whereas in Cypress, it's literally right there. I can add my own logs in Cypress. I can see my logs from the browser. I can see my logs from the app. I can see my logs from the test scripts all in the same bloody place, which is amazing. Selenium doesn't really have a lot of developer tools to debug per se, whereas Cypress uses the Chrome developer tools or the Firefox ones or whatever ones you want. I actually can't set a breakpoint on my code in Selenium and debug it, whereas in Cypress I can literally just set a breakpoint in the browser, I can set a breakpoint on my test, I can set a breakpoint on my code, and it works, like in the browser, which is pretty awesome. Selenium does have screenshots and videos as well. Cypress has that as well, so it has that matching functionality. But the point is, I don't have to correlate that to logs. I can see that in real time and like literally scrub through my actual tests. So what's it, like we said before, it's not for code that you don't own. It's not for websites you don't own. It definitely doesn't work for Internet Explorer yet. They keep talking about making a plugin, but because Internet Explorer is kind of old and Edge is kind of the new thing, and even Edge kind of threw in the towel and said we're going to use Chrome for the next driver, for the next browser that works on Windows, they don't really have a lot of motivation. So the longer they wait, the less desire there is. A lot of the things I work on still have IE is like 80% of our users, but what we're doing is cross-browser compatible anyway, so we don't really need it. It's just more of to make management feel better. It doesn't really help you much. Good news, they did get a round of funding, at least I think last fall or December, so they've got more developers on the team, the Cypress developers down in Atlanta, so maybe that'll help. So the cool new nerd features is Cores mainly works good. So if you're running locally in a Docker container, you can hit a third-party website. Some of the things you may have to turn off security features like Chrome inside the container, but it takes care of Cores. You don't have to worry about it. It works locally, so you have local servers. That works too. They've done a really good job of when you access a DOM element, they'll do the retry for you and time it. So it's a lot more deterministic, meaning less flake. Your tests are more likely to work every time. It's not going to randomly, fail for whatever. They have all the retries, all the waits waiting for your DOM. Unlike Selenium, they don't wait for the entire page to load, so they can immediately start accessing your DOM. So a lot faster. You don't have to have one add fail and cause a whole page load event not to fire correctly, for example. So a lot of the wrappers that people write in Java and JavaScript to make Selenium a little more reliable, like they've handled all that, which is great. It also uses Xenon, which is kind of like a mocking stubbing framework in the background. So if you want to stub and mock all network traffic, so if you're trying to do white box tests to guarantee that your code works and all network traffic is stubbed, those are white box tests. You can guarantee that works. And black box, you're actually really hitting a real server in the same exact code base, which is pretty rad. They have their own mocking server built in for all the HTTP requests. So you can actually test a website on another server and mock all those requests, which is really cool. But because you're in a browser, you don't have access like you do with Selenium to like the machine. So Java or Node have access to the desktop that's actually running it, right? So if you want to like download a zip file and open it, you can do that using Node. You just have to send a message to the browser. So that's how they handle secure to do that. So it's a little more difficult to debug the Node part of that, but again, those are usually edge cases anyway, so it's not the end of the world. But you can pause your tests, like literally in a button in a demo and then hit resume, which is kind of cool. You can debug in line. You can use a keyword debug, or you can use their Cypress debugger. They don't use promises much, so it kind of shields you from that. As a functional programmer, I hate how most of the functions are no-ops, but you kind of get used to it because most of your Cypress code is very small anyway, and it just works. So they don't allow you to do like promise change, which tends to confuse a lot of developers who are in Java or are used to a blocking language. It's very simple. This network request, then this line of code, then this line of code, where in JavaScript has promises, and it's very confusing, and you have asynchronous code. So they've kind of abstracted that away with a nice API, so you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to learn it. The docs are better than protractors. They actually work. And it works with ES6 modules without a transpiler. So if you just want to write raw JavaScript with classes, with ES6, you can do that. Again, the only negatives that I didn't like about Cypress was 80% of like one of the apps I work on is IE, and I can't test that. So that's kind of frustrating. You also use different module system in Node. You use like the CommonJS module system, whereas in Cypress you use the ES6. So it's kind of weird to mix and match if you're doing a lot of Node stuff. And then Selenium starts faster than Cypress does. But once Cypress is up, it's significantly faster. So as you're developing throughout the day, it's liquid fast. It's like lightning fast. The headless, like I said, is slow unless you're willing to pay for it, for the concurrency. But I mean, Gatling for performance testing is the exact same way. That's their business model. Let me see. The only other negative is, so I don't know if this is true in a newer build, but older builds, each test was an independent run. So you actually have to take the results from each test to correlate together to a single report, where most unit testing frameworks will run all the tests and give you a report, and then you can use that as LCOV or JUnit or whatever else. Whereas for some reason, Cypress, if you run multiple tests, puts them together. So I've written plugins to do it. It's not too hard, but it's kind of frustrating. Let's see what else. I don't like all the no-ops. We've already talked about that. But again, it's mostly deterministic. So again, it's used for testing your site. you build. That's what Cypress is used for. It's not like Selenium, where you're testing an existing site that's been around for a while that you don't control the code. It's supposed to enable test-driven development, regular refactor, making it fun, right? If you ever seen the testing pyramid where you have a lot of unit tests, a few integration tests, and like very few end-to-end tests, what they want to do is flip that over where the majority of tests you write are end-to-end tests, right? And they're not as expensive to maintain and all that other stuff, and they're fast, deterministic. I think out of all the ED tools I've used, it's like the best developer experience because you can literally have your code and your test like right there at the same time, super fast. And again, it inspires confidence that your tests are going to pass, right? It makes you feel good that you know the website works for the most part. And so yeah, I'll give Bellick some links that basically explains where you can go learn Cypress,